My crazy religious wife is forcing our young son to quit gymnastics because she believes he's sinning by being around other girls. Now I'm divorcing her because she's sick in the head. I met my wife in youth group before getting married years later. It was obvious from day one that she was the stricter one between us. While I believe in being strict to a point, I still think there are some times when she's been unreasonably strict. There have been times where I've had to step in and put my foot down over things that she was overcomplicating. I remember her denying our son to skip youth group to go to a friend's birthday party because God is supposed to come first. While I do understand that, I told her she was being unreasonable, along with how missing an occasional Friday wouldn't hurt. But she said it wasn't just that, he wasn't allowed to have friends who aren't Christians and the boy he wanted to go see wasn't Christian. I told her it was ridiculous that she was limiting who our son could be friends with just because of her religion. She nearly slapped me at that and said I insulted her. The whole thing turned into a big argument where she didn't speak to me, made me sleep on the couch, and even made the kid ignore me. The argument wasn't over until I apologized, but we always kept coming back to the subject whenever she saw him with a friend she knew wasn't Christian. From then on, I calmly asked her what the problem was and she confessed that she had made too many mistakes after drifting from God after graduating high school and thinking that she didn't need him. So, in her words, she was just trying to help him avoid doing the same thing. I told her that while I understood where she was coming from, forcing him to do/go to something he doesn't want to, will not help him long term and only make him resentful later on. However, she's convinced that he'll turn to drinking and doing substances like she did. She often says those memories often stick with her to the point where she doesn't want him ever having to repeat her mistakes. This brings us to our latest argument. She wants him to quit gymnastics because she thinks that being around a bunch of girls in tights is unhealthy, along with how God wants us to shield our eyes from things that could distract us from him. I honestly thought she was a little crazy, especially because she was insinuating that our son wouldn't be able to control himself in front of girls and would ultimately do something bad. She also says the sport provides a lot of easy opportunities for him to become lustful in an environment that seems completely normal, and I already knew that trying to talk her out of this one would be almost pointless, but I tried nonetheless, for my son's sake. I told her that while she can think whatever she wants, it doesn't mean that others will think the same way. There's nothing immoral about doing gymnastics and we need to support him because he clearly has a passion for it, but she said she didn't want him around an environment that often harbored girls of different ages, and that the last thing she wanted was for him to start looking at younger girls. That's where I snapped because not allowing him to have Christian friends was one thing, but she crossed the line with that one. I told her that while I supported her desire to talk to him about purity, she is wrong for putting her religious bias in everything and assuming the worst for our son. She was being a bad mother for assuming our son would think like that, along with how she's wrong for viewing gymnastics in that light. But she couldn't see how in the wrong she was. This was clearly a hill she was willing to die on. She said that she'll no longer drive him or allow him to go at the end of his current class, and I told her that she's wrong and constantly over the top about everything, along with how she's presenting a demented example of Christianity to him. The next day, my son called me at work to tell me what his mom had said. According to her, this would be his last semester in gymnastics because it is her duty to protect him while he lives under our roof and shield him from sin. I was pissed. She went behind my back knowing damn well our conversation was not over and she made a huge decision that would impact our son negatively, all because she was accusing him of one of the worst crimes out there. I tried to talk to her again, but she told me to save it because her decision was final and she gets to make that call because she's the one that drives him to the gymnastics place. I tried my best to reassure my son I would talk to her as long as it takes to get her to change her mind, and he looked a bit better after I said that, but I'm slightly torn on this one. She's the only one that can drive him because I'm at work and if she doesn't want to take him, then she doesn't have to. However, the car issue is the least of our problems. My wife doesn't want to renew him at the end of the semester. I'm considering using my own money to pay for it myself, but since our finances are combined, I know she'll throw a fit about it. Even if I do that, I have no clue how he's going to get there. I know that my wife is wrong and that he shouldn't have to quit just because of her assumptions, but I also know that the real issue lies within our marriage. I want to make things work, and I understand that she's been through a lot. That's why she's so adamant about him staying close to God. But I disagree with the way she's going about it, and I'm questioning if I'll ever be able to fully get through to her. My crazy religious wife is forcing our young son to quit gymnastics because she believes he's sinning by being around other girls. Now I'm divorcing her because she's sick in the head. My wife wanted my son to quit gymnastics because she thinks that him being around other girls in gymnastics apparel would cause his mind to lust and be ungodly. This would then make him impure and she believes the second he turns away from God, he'll be getting wasted every day. This whole situation has been brewing for years and it's made me tired of her religious nonsense. She doesn't even respect the religion since it's become a scapegoat for petty beliefs that people want to promote under the guise of something like that, and I think it's very manipulative. For years, I stayed quiet and did nothing, but that only made me complicit with her. The thought of separation and the opinions that would follow from our church and parents and friends would be overwhelming, considering how some really consider it taboo to get divorced. But after her recent nonsense with labeling our son as a predator, I don't really care anymore. I've been growing more numb to religion over the past few years because of her, and after hearing her suggest that our son would look at girls in the very same environment that he's grown up around for years in a lustful way just doesn't sit well with me. She's actively sexualizing a sport filled with kids and suggested that our son could become a predator if he stayed, and that has resonated more than anything else she's ever done. This has made me wonder if she already thinks our son is a predator, despite him not doing anything. Before doing anything, I decided to talk to her one-on-one about the matter. I asked if she had anything against gymnastics personally, and I told her that trying to make him quit would only make him hate us. This was something our son loved and has expressed he wants to do it as he gets older. Denying him of the one thing he wants in life seems cruel and mean. I don't want my son to grow up to resent me just because of his mother. But her response to my questions was, the world has a habit of making everything that isn't intimate, and that the gymnastics environment promotes girls in clothing that can be easily looked at wrongfully. Honestly, I had never thought of gymnastics that way, so that says more about her than it does our son. I get that the clothing could be provocative, but I never focused on that and just thought of how happy my son looks while he's on the balance beam. She then went on to say that God wants us to have clean eyes, so it's only reasonable that our son quit gymnastics. When I suggested that perhaps she was projecting her personal problems on him, she just said no and didn't want to talk about it. She was being so immature and wasn't cooperating when a marriage is supposed to be about working things out. She then proceeded to get upset and say that I'm wrong for allowing our son to stay in an environment where he'll grow older as younger girls keep coming in. She said that it says a lot about what I'm comfortable about looking at and what I allow him to do. I was just done after that because she was now accusing me of being unfaithful and liking underage girls. All because I didn't think our son should quit something he enjoys. I went to talk to my son instead to let him know we'd be going up to my parents for a while, and I was upfront about why. His mom was being a crazy pervert and I'm 100% on his side. It's not his fault his mom is sexualizing a sport and minors in a way that is very inappropriate. I'm currently working on divorcing my wife and undoing the damage she's done to my son.